Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host. Again, I apologize for the audio quality and the lack of a setup, still moving and going through that whole process. But very excited for a special episode today. And join me for that is Mr. Brett Kollmann, the host and creator of The Film Room. And you might also know his work from the Bootleg Podcast, doing some great work over there as well. Recently did a deep dive into every team in the NFL, which I cannot recommend enough. Brett, thanks for taking the time to join me, man. How are you doing today?
I am ready for the season to start. It kind of sneaks up on me every single year, and this year's no different. But we're here. Games are being played. Camps are almost over. We got regular season starting up in, 2 weeks from now? So
yeah,
I'm good to go. Ready to have real games played for once.
I know we got college football week 0 this week. We got college football week 1 next week. So I don't know about you, but this really felt like a super long off season in compared to other off seasons outside of the COVID year, obviously, which was the worst. But this year just felt super long.
See, it felt fast for me, but the only reason it did was because we went 2 months recording 40 podcast episodes. And trust me, when you record 40 podcast episodes in 2 months, it flies by. So maybe I'm just going to keep doing that every offseason because it felt like I didn't have an offseason. We were grinding even harder than we were during the normal season.
Yeah, it keeps you busy for sure. So like I said, what we're here to talk about, obviously the Chargers. We'll get some AFC West stuff. I do want to give you kind of an opportunity to talk about that process that you guys have had throughout doing this deep dive into every single team, because it's great work. Like, I think obviously we do deep dives on the Chargers and stuff like that. Like, we know the Chargers, but I don't know what's going on with the Bears. I don't know what's going on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So what was kind of your guys' process as you went through the deep dive experience for every team?
A big thing is we start out with kind of a look back at 2021. What happened last year? What were some of the pitfalls they ran into? Was it, they just didn't have the depth to survive injuries, or, was there just a really awful coaching situation, like say with Jacksonville? Did a quarterback get hurt, like with Baltimore? They start out 8-3 and then they completely tail off because everybody gets hurt. Or with the Chargers, was it like, okay, they were always a threat every single week, but you didn't know exactly which Chargers team was going to show up? Either they can dumpster Cincinnati or they can lose to the Texans. You really never knew what Chargers team you were going to get. So looking back at 2021 was kind of the first thing we did. And then we kind of go through the power structure, specifically with the Chargers. You got the John Carroll Illuminati there with Brandon Staley and everybody that's connected to John Carroll. Then we look at who they lost in free agency, or really generally in the offseason, who they lost, and then who they brought in. Who did they retain, who did they sign, and then who did they draft? We go through some key UDFA acquisitions. And so we kind of give a whole top-down look at what happened last year, who's running the show, who did they lose, who did they gain, and where do they stand now? And specifically for the Chargers, what that netted out for us was, okay, they did, quote-unquote, lose some talent because they had to, because they needed to free up a whole bunch of money and assets in order to, go get J.C. Jackson, to trade for Khalil Mack. And when we kind of weighed the losses to the gains came out significantly ahead. And so I think that doing that process for every single team, you can see where, for instance, the Chargers stack up with the rest of the AFC West. And it kind of, it almost kind of, I'm trying to say this delicately because I know people get so frustrated when I curse their teams. It almost made me more sure than ever that the Chargers are legit because we were directly stacking up every single move with the rest of the division. And I really don't mean to jinx it because I do that every single year, specifically with the Chargers. I always say it's the Chargers' year. But this year, maybe more than ever, I truly believe it because every single weakness they had, every single one got addressed. And I really can't find anything wrong with this team, at all.
Well, I know you're not alone there in saying that it's the Chargers' year. We started doing this podcast in 2019. Chargers had just come off a 12-4 season, won a playoff game, and the three of us on here were like, "This is the year, man! Like this is gonna be it. They're gonna build off of the playoffs, and they're gonna do all this great stuff." And Philip Rivers was an MVP candidate last year, and then they went 5-11. So, it happens. That's the nature of the beast sometimes. That's what makes football so fun.
Yeah, but at the same time, and I want to use all deference to Phillip Rivers. He's incredible.
Yeah.
Tail end of Phillip Rivers compared to what the Chargers have now with Justin Herbert, as great as Phil was, it's not the same. Justin does stuff on the field that, again, Phil's going to the Hall of Fame. Rivers never made some of the throws that Herbert's capable of making. And so I think now more than ever, the ceiling for the Chargers is even higher than it ever was during the Rivers era. And that's saying a lot.
Well, you mentioned it, so I want to go right into that. Obviously, anybody who knows you and your work knows, we're not going to revisit past takes. I want to talk about future takes here. So what kind of step forward are you expecting from Justin Herbert this year? What are some things that you hope he can work on and improve upon? Oh, shit.
There we go. I think I lost you.
I don't know. So that's going to be a fun one. So
fix it in post.
I know. But I wanted to get your thoughts on some things that Justin Herbert, you feel like he can improve upon, and places that he can get to this year, it being his second year in this system and having, basically the whole cast brought back around him. What are you thinking you can see some growth for Justin Herbert this year?
It's actually kind of a similar trajectory to Pat Mahomes since he's, gotten in the league, where he knows he's better than everyone. He knows he can do things that other people just simply can't. There's maybe 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the league max that can make the kind of throws he can make. And so sometimes I think he gets caught up with how ridiculous his arm is and how talented he is. And so he tries to play hero ball and he gets in trouble for it. And Mahomes did the exact same stuff, retreating 13 yards behind the line of scrimmage where his tackles have absolutely no shot at protecting him, so he can throw off his back foot to Tyreek 45 yards down the field. Mahomes had to learn that even though he could, doesn't necessarily mean he always should. And he had to kind of, okay, I'm going to stay in my 7 and 9 yard depth in the pocket. I'm going to play within structure. I'm going to get the ball out quick. And when we have an opportunity for a big play, we'll take it, but we shouldn't always be looking for the home run. Herbert, came out of the gate his rookie year throwing touchdowns to Jalen Guyton for 75 yards against freaking 0, falling off his back foot. He's always been that guy. But learning to play within structure and not digging himself unnecessarily bad holes, when he's trying to play hero ball, that's the big thing that I think he still needs to work on, which, to be honest, if your number one complaint about a quarterback is, hey, he's capable of doing ridiculous things, I just wish he didn't do them all the time, that's not a bad problem to have. But a lot of young, talented quarterbacks go through that. They have to learn that structure matters. And I think going into year 3 now, I think it is for him, I think that he's old enough now that he's going to do the same thing Pat did, which is he's going to start playing in structure. And once he's always in structure, there's really nothing you can do to stop him.
Yeah, see, that was definitely something that I was looking forward to in him getting this kind of Saints offense and being able to work with Joe Lombardi. And Joe Lombardi catches a lot of flack for not, using the whole, deep part of the field with Justin Herbert's arm. But I think they really had to work with him because the offense when he was a rookie was touchdown to check down. And if there's nothing else in between, then you're lost. And so that was something that I was really excited to see heading into last year. And Herbert made a lot of strides and going through his progressions. And now you can see him going from 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 instead of just touchdown to check down. And so, I think we will see the offense be that much more open this year as Herbert continues to take that next step mentally.
Yeah. And I mean, the fact that they have so many receivers now, it's not just, okay, we're throwing a 50-50 ball to Mike, or, we've got Keenan working an option route. Now it's, okay, we got Josh Palmer, we got Eckler, who's a great man beater.
Mm-hmm.
Spiller has had a couple great reps as a pass catcher so far. You got a billion tight ends over there. So there's a lot of weapons to work with, to the point where if you want to get to the backside dig and you're throwing that backside dig to Josh Palmer, there's a lot of teams that would love to have Josh Palmer being their isolated receiver on the backside of 3x1. So, there's there's going to be a lot of not just big plays in this Chargers offense, but the intermediate chunks that we always kind of wish they were getting before. I think they're going to get a lot more of those this year.
Yeah, I absolutely agree there. I want to shift gears and talk about the offensive line. We covered a little bit of everything there. Where were you guys on Zion Johnson leading into the draft, and how do you think he'll kind of fit into this offense as a rookie?
Inarguably one of the 3 best interior linemen in this class. It depended on whether or not you saw him more as a center or a guard. For me, I thought he could do either, so it didn't really matter. Luckily, they already have Corey Linsley at center, so they didn't need him at center. They could just plug him in at guard. And I think, looking at a starting offensive line of Slater, Filer, Linsley, Zion, do we know yet if Pipkins or Storm are the right tackle?
It's going to be Pipkins. They haven't announced it yet, but he took all the first team reps yesterday and all the first team reps today. So it's going to be Pipkins. Okay.
Either way, right tackle is kind of the only thing I'm a little bit wary on.
Yeah.
Hopefully they address that next offseason. But again, if you got 4 out of 5, it's still vastly superior to what the line looked like in Justin's rookie year, where you were just praying to God he would survive. So they've done a lot of good work over the last couple off seasons. Zion was absolutely right down the middle of the fairway, first-round pick. He's going to be solid. He's going to be stable. I think that he could very easily be like their own version of Shaq Mason, somebody who you never hear his name, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and Shaq Mason's had a great career in New England, and he's going to be a good starter in Tampa for sure. All right, I want to shift to the opposite side of the ball here quickly because your co-host, of course, is a big Chicago Bears fan. So I'm curious to get your thoughts as you kind of talked and picked his brain about Khalil Mack, what Khalil Mack kind of has left in the tank. There's been a lot of resurgent talk. There's been, yesterday he told Peter King that he wants to be better than the classic version of himself. So as somebody who has all this information and a co-host who is a Bears fan, what do you think Khalil Mack has left in the tank to bring to this team in Los Angeles?
He can still absolutely be an elite edge rusher and somebody who can play not just with his hand in the dirt, but also standing up. If you want to go 4 down, he can basically be a quasi defensive end for you. If you want to do a 5-man surface, it's not even really a 3-4. It's more of a 5-2. If you want to do that kind of stuff, he could play outside linebacker for you. He's still Khalil Mack. Obviously he's a little bit older and durability's been a little bit of a concern, but when he's healthy, he's still Khalil freaking Mack. And Chargers fans should know what Khalil Mack can do since he spent so much time in this division. I think the biggest benefit for him being there is not just as a pass rusher, though. It's as a run defender, because pretty much anything that the Chargers can do to not have Jerry Tillery on the field on early downs is okay with me. The fact that you can line Khalil up over a tight end is like a 6 technique and say, hey, go murder that guy and stop pretty much any run play that's going to the C or D gap. Khalil's going to take that out, which means that, Joseph Day, Austin Johnson, all of them, Covington, Akito Abonia, who's a kid from UCLA that they drafted this year, who I'm a big fan of. If they know that nothing is bouncing because Khalil Mack is there, then they can play even more aggressive on the inside and just start shooting gaps and making plays. And then, oh, by the way, you got Joey Bosa on the other edge too. So I think the biggest value he brings is not just as a pass rusher, but as a run defender, because run defense was one of the main problems for this entire team last year, and Mack helped fixes that.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see all of that. And, again, it's preseason training camp hype has been really kind of off the chain for Khalil Mack this year, which is understandable, but the reps of him and Rashawn Slater have been really fun to watch.
He bowled right through Rashawn on a couple of those, and nobody does that. So yeah, he's still got juice.
Yeah, there's still that was one of those like, all right, this is happening. this is going off the train. Like let's go. I want to talk about the secondary because I think we're going to see a little bit of a shift here with Brandon Staley in the second year. Last year they did so many quarters looks, so many cover 2 looks. We'll see about J.C. Jackson. He's hurt as of today with the ankle surgery. But up until today, it sounded like Brandon Staley's plan was to play a lot more man coverage, have J.C., shadow opposing number 1 receivers. What are your expectations for that back end group of the Chargers defense this year?
Even if they're not playing a whole lot of cover 1 or 2 man, and they are still sticking with a lot of the match quarter stuff. Match quarters is basically just man coverage with zone coverage principles anyways. So you still need guys that are really sticky. You're not doing any spot drop zone in this defense. They just don't really do that, and for good reason. And so I think having a whole bunch of corners that can play quasi man coverage even in their zone looks is imperative. I think that when they played a lot of cover 2 last season, it was because that was just what their corners were best suited for. Asante, I think, can do a little bit of everything, but they didn't really have anybody else besides Asante that I felt could, okay, I'm going to line up in a press look, half a yard inside the receiver, use the boundary to my advantage and just go dominate them. Like they really only had one corner who could do that last year. So I think now, again, if JC's healthy, they have at least 2. And then Callahan at nickel, when he's healthy, is a really good nickel as well. Mm-hmm. So you can play more cover 1 if you want to. You can play more 2-man if you want to. But most importantly, you're going to get more mileage out of all the match quarter stuff that Staley likes to do too, because you can put JC Jackson. The most common thing you're going to see in this division, honestly, is going to be 3-by-1. So you can put JC Jackson in a press look in match quarters on the backside. He's going to go dominate his dude, or at least hold up against his dude. And then you got Asante playing on the boundary on the other side. So I think it's not just about, we want to play more cover 1. It's, we want to get better at doing all the quarter stuff too. So hopefully JC's healthy because he allows them to do that, and they won't have to do as much cover 2 and cover 3 if he's healthy. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting. And obviously we hope JC is recovering well from ankle surgery, and Chargers will need him in this division. So I don't want to spoil too much of your guys' episode, doing the whole AFC West deep dive. And, you had this great line that I thought was just perfect, that you felt more comfortable picking the division winner as opposed to like the order of the whole 4 teams. But I guess, is there any clear separation for you in the AFC West where you think is this team or this position group is going to put a certain team above the rest?
I picked the Chiefs to win the division, but that's solely because until somebody else wins it, you kind of have to. You got Pat Mahomes, you got Andy Reid. They had a phenomenal draft themselves. They reloaded with a whole bunch of talent. The Chargers absolutely could still win it. So could the Broncos. So could the Raiders. All of them have an argument. I mean, we picked ceiling and floor for the division. Literally every team in the division, I said my ceiling's 13 wins. And, 13-4 in the AFC is probably getting you the first seed. So the Chargers are totally capable of it. But I'm still defaulting to the Chiefs kind of until further notice. Like, until somebody kills the king, I can't not. But would I be shocked if the Chargers come out and go 13-4 and win the division and get home field advantage and go to the Super Bowl? No, because that's how talented this team is. They really are capable of doing it. So I'm kind of erring on the side of caution with that Chiefs pick just based on recent history. But I mean, you can't tell me that if the Chargers made the playoffs last year and if they beat the Raiders in week 18 last year, you can't tell me they wouldn't have made a run because Herbert was playing out of his freaking mind. And I guarantee you the Chiefs, if they played them in the first round, which they would have if they won that Raiders game, I'm not so sure the Chiefs would have won that game. The Chargers very easily could have knocked them out last year. So they're still dangerous. They're still absolutely a threat to everybody in the conference. I'm just kind of in a, okay, well, we'll see it when we see it type mode with the Chargers.
Yeah, I think that's fair for the rest of the division, right? Lindsey Jones always talks about this on formerly The Athletic and now The Ringer, that, the Broncos haven't beaten the Chiefs in like 5 years. Like they're 0-8 or something like that. So,
is
the
it
Chiefs,
really that bad?
It really has been that bad. I think since Peyton was around was the last time they beat the Chiefs.
Jesus. Okay.
So, there's a lot of prove it going around in the division, but we know who the Chiefs are. And I think, a lot of people are kind of taking victory laps without Tyreek Hill, but I still think the Chiefs are going to be very, very good in the AFC. So, Brett, appreciate your time, man. What's coming down the road for you guys down there at the Bootleg Podcast, and where can people find your work?
So we're this week, I think this is going out this week. We're kind of doing like a status check for all the young quarterbacks around the league. And then we're looking at some preseason rookie winners the week after that, and then we're doing a predictions episode, kind of looking at the NFL as a whole, not just predicting divisions, but predicting the league, Super Bowl matchups, conference championship matchups, all that good stuff. And Justin Herbert, spoiler alert, gets a lot of mentions in that episode. So maybe Chargers fans will find that one fun. And then over on my other channel, I have a Kenny Pickett episode coming out because he's looked, I don't want to say surprisingly good, but definitely further along than maybe we expected. And then, cover your ears, Chargers fans. I'm doing a Devontae Adams episode right after that. So a lot of stuff coming up the next few weeks.
Well, it's going to be an important one. You obviously got to know your enemy, and, there's going to be a lot of good intel there. So, Brett, can't thank you enough for your time today. Keep up the great work. We love listening to your podcast on this show. My other co-host, Tyler, listens to every single episode you guys do. So make sure to keep up the good work. Had to give him a shout out. And again, really appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks for having me.